Thank you for joining us tonight. We're looking forward to hearing people's thoughts about potential green infrastructure and urban greening projects in Bay Point. I'm Lisa Anich with Contra Costa Resource Conservation District, and I'll give a quick background of the project along with John Steer, who's with the Contra Costa County Watershed Program. James Hansen and Brett Bucknam of Hyphae Design Lab will present the projects and lead our group discussion. Next slide. So our project was initiated by California's Prop 1 Water Bond, which provides funds to address water-related priorities in disadvantaged communities throughout the state. Here in the Bay Area, the Resource Conservation District is one of about a dozen organizations working to advance projects that are fundable projects that match local priorities. Next slide. This shows the process for identifying local priorities, starting with listening sessions and surveys as part of a water needs assessment. And we held our first public workshop in Bay Point about a year ago, and that led to discussions with local agencies. We're thankful to the Ambrose Recreation and Park District for talking to us about feasibility and their priorities at the sites that they manage. And also we thank the Bay Point Municipal Advisory Council Committee for letting us give a presentation at their June board meeting about a broader range of potential projects. So, next slide. During the water needs assessment, the top priorities we heard about from Bay Point residents included repairs to aging stormwater infrastructure. People told us that trees and landscaping to improve appearance of streets and public areas are important, as well as trails for pedestrians and bikes. We're looking to match these priorities with the categories of projects that are eligible for Prop 1 funding, and green infrastructure is a good match. Next slide. If you're not familiar with green infrastructure, it's an alternative to traditional gray infrastructure, and gray infrastructure moves rainfall runoff in pipes and culverts. But in contrast, green infrastructure incorporates plants and allows rainwater to soak into the soil. Next slide. As an illustration, here are some typical green infrastructure projects, including street side plantings, rain gardens, and permeable pavement. Next slide.
This is where I come in.
This is where John Steer comes in.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm John Steer, Watershed Planner for Contra County and Watershed Program here. And some of you may have known about our work on creating the Green Infrastructure Plan, which is basically a blueprint for doing green infrastructure around our unincorporated communities. And our focus really is on disadvantaged communities like Bay Point, Rodeo, and North Richmond. Even in the preparation of the Green Infrastructure Plan between 2018 and 2019, we were focused on identifying projects in these communities. And so we worked both with nonprofit groups and our internal technical advisory group, and it was approved toward the end of 2019. So, Khadija, please. So as part of that process, let's see, did we go too far? Oh, sorry, but this is yes. So as part of the process, we identified a few projects that were in the GI plan. They included Willow Pass Road. There are various intersections do kind of greening of that street, which is a major thoroughfare, the major thoroughfare along the Bailey Road in Bay Point, Ambrose, the Center Park, and these are the types of GI that we're proposing here, and a Nuda Park. So you can see a variety here of GI that is being proposed for Bay Point that really fits in with the concepts that moments ago Lisa was identifying for kind of water-related priorities for Bay Point, because there are really multiple benefit projects, which reminds me of the next slide. Indeed, that's really why we're taking an approach here that's really looking at how do we improve connections among the parks and creating better access and quality of life, as well as reducing the urban heat island effect through new street trees in Bay Point. like to hand it over now to Brent, who will be really giving the major portion of the slideshow with respect to the projects that that they've actually enhanced or added to with the existing list of projects that the county is investigating.
Great. So I'll dive in a little bit here, and because I can't see anyone who is on the Zoom, like was said before, put your notes in there and then someone can interrupt me, or hopefully we'll get through pretty quickly and have time at the end. So just for folks to have some context, we came in to work with, I'm from Hyphae Design Lab, work with James Hansen, who's on the project and here as well. And we came in to both assess a bunch of the existing GI opportunities that John was just talking about, and also work with the city and agencies to try to see how we might expand the number of possible opportunity sites and start working with neighbors and community to sort of dive deeper into those sites and help advance some designs for them. So essentially, there's been about 4 or 5 steps of this process that we're in the midst of right now. We've been doing a bunch of data analysis to look at how green infrastructure could both supply stormwater and flooding mitigation impacts, but also look at a broader array of issues like heat island and air quality, and then work to prioritize about 20 or 30 sites that could be applicable for short-term funding, but also numerous other funding rounds that we're going after that we get into later. We're also now working in the stakeholder outreach process, where we've been actually working with some of the landowners and now are sort of transitioning into that community engagement process of actually working with broader public to look at some of those sites and get people's feedback and priorities. Our goal at the end of the summer is to actually select 2 or 3 projects and advance those for funding through the IRWIP grant that Lisa was talking about. That is the impetus for the funding for this and future grants. So our end goal is to sort of advance conceptual designs and cost estimates on a few of these sites so that they can be included in the grant. And just to give a quick overview, part of what we've done is do a number of analyses of both the hydrology, which is sort of the driving funding stream for green infrastructure, but also at these other benefits like air quality benefits, heat island benefits, other benefits that could overlap, for example, with pedestrian improvements. And so one of the things that's been a real driver for us in this project, and I think one of the reasons that we were brought together with the RCD originally, is we come from Oakland, so over the hills, but we do a lot of environmental justice work in our own community. And what we wanted to really do is target the funding and the prioritization of these projects into disadvantaged communities, both because we think that's where the money should be going, and also I think it will help prioritize funding in different grant competitions. So one of the big things with green infrastructure is often it's designed primarily by civil engineers because it has to provide stormwater infrastructure benefits, but sometimes this can also be fairly over-engineered and still require a lot of concrete. And so throughout all of these project opportunities, what we're really trying to do is see how we can improve, for example, stormwater and flooding conditions, but also make those elements amenities to the parks, amenities to right-of-ways and streets, and in doing so provide a whole diversity of benefits to the community, from shade to education to improving natural resources. And I think these can all be done together, and that's really the goal of a lot of these sites, and us looking for opportunities to not just treat stormwater, but provide other programmatic and social environmental benefits. So a lot of those benefits we've been looking at are resiliency, obviously, for the community by lessening flood impacts. Another big component is trash mitigation. This was something early on in the surveys and workshops with people in the community that this was an issue on streets. Our big goals are also integrating this green infrastructure with transit connectivity, more walkable streets, more safe corridors to schools, more open space trails, and finally looking at how we can shade parking lots, shade streets, shade play structures and paths to provide these multiple benefits. And what we did was we, both for funding and the partners that we're going to collaborate with likely, we've broken a lot of these priority sites then into different categories. So some is all grouped into open space, which are parks, trails, natural areas. A bunch of them are in active transportation corridors, so places that walking and biking and bus routes may already be planned to be improved or could be improved alongside green infrastructure. We're also really interested in community hubs, so other schools, community centers, churches, businesses that want to partner. We show some opportunity here, but our goal is really to utilize this session as well as surveys and outreach over the next month to get feedback from and partnerships with more and more of those types of folks like yourself. So this is just an online map that you will be able to go to, but it goes through and shows how we've prioritized some of the sites to those open space or transit-oriented development areas. And these are some of the sites we're going to get into in more detail.